Greetings and welcome to another installment from the Patchwork Productionz Learn to Crochet for Beginners series. In this video, we will be making a pillow. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Stitch, and Patchwork Productionz is all about learning and doing crochet. So make sure you subscribe so you never miss another installment. Without further ado, let's get started. So for this video, we are going to be making a pillow. Now, it's not going to be a large pillow, probably a very useless pillow. It's just basically a decoration pillow, but it'll give you the idea of how you can make larger pillows or how pillows could be made in crochet in the first place. So I've chosen these two colors because of how this is going to end, and you'll see, but they complement each other quite nicely. And so for this pillow, I am going to be using a US J10 or 5.75 millimeter hook. I hope you can read that. And I'll also be using these weight 4 yarns. And along with that, you'll need a yarn needle, which I have a yarn needle right here I can use, and also you'll need scissors and a ruler. So this pillow is not going to be very large. It's just going to be 12 by 12 pillow, so it's a fairly useless pillow, but it's easy to get started with. So what we're doing is we're using these two colors and making 6 by 6 squares, 2 in each color, so we get a 12 by 12 pillow. Now, the actual sizing of the pillow is not critical because it is just a little decorative pillow. So if it's not exactly 6 inches, don't sweat it. Or if you don't exactly get the same size that I get, don't sweat it. But if you do want to get around the size, just change your hook until you get that right gauge of stitches and rows to be able to make the project. This will also be worked in the moss stitch. So this project will allow you to use quite a few things that we've covered in previous tutorial videos, which I hope you have seen. I encourage you to check those out. So to begin this pattern, we are going to make a foundation row of, for me, it was 24 stitches. So I'm going to make a foundation row of 24 stitches, and actually we'll make that, yes, 24 is what it shall be. So let me go ahead and do that. So we have 24 chains here for our foundation chain, and I'll just do one more for a turning chain, and we're going to go back across this with just single crochets. So we're going to make our first row entirely of single crochets. And so now we have our first row here of 24 single crochets. And so now I would advise you to get some sort of marker, and I have my own stitch markers here that I can use, but I'd advise you to get a marker and mark this row, because from here on you are going to be working with the moss stitch, and you're going to be doing 24 of them, so you need to know where to count from, because we're not counting this row in the 24. Technically you'll have 25 rows if you want to look at it that way. So if you remember how to begin the moss stitch, you're just going to, from here, chain 1, you're going to skip that first stitch and you're going to work a single crochet in the next stitch. You're going to chain 1, you're going to skip the next stitch and work a single crochet in the next stitch after that. So if you see what I'm doing here, you get some more yarn out, you're going to be chaining one, skipping what would be the next stitch you work into, and working in the one after that. And that's how you do this. If you want to know the full details on doing the moss stitch, you can check out my tutorial on that. But basically you do this all the way across, and you are going to make 24 rows of this, and you're going to do this for each color. So basically I have this dark, I guess you could call it a forest green maybe, here, and I'm going to work this pattern to make my first 6-inch square, and then in my lighter green I am going to work the same pattern. I'm going to do this twice for each so that I get 2 6-inch squares. So let me show you when I'm done here. So here, let's just count our stitches to make sure we have the right amount. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Let's count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, good. I have 24 stitches. And let's just take our ruler here and measure this real quick and see if our measurements are even close to accurate. So for me, it's close enough. Using a 5.75 millimeter hook with this weight 4 yarn, I am getting my 24 stitches to equal 6 inches. And this is basically what you want if you want to make sure that this is going to be a 12-inch pillow. If it's a little shorter or a little longer, it's not too big a deal. And technically it will grow a little bit when we do the rest of the project, but this is what you want. You're going to do this, the same pattern that we're doing here, in this second color here as well. As I said before, you're going to do this twice, so you have 2 6-inch green squares, because after adding those 24 rows, you're going to have 6-inch by 6-inch, and you're going to do the same thing in this color, so you'll have 2 of these. Then we're going to make the back piece, because that's only one side of the pillow. We need the other side. So I'll quickly get set up to show you what that would look like. And so for the back piece, it's going to be basically the same pattern, except this length is going to be doubled, because the back panel is one gigantic square, so it's going to be the 12 by 12 inches. So instead of doing 24, you're going to do 48 for your foundation chain, and then instead of doing 24 rows up, you're going to do 48 rows. Also, you can join your new color as such, and basically the idea is, as you go from row to row, you can just pull up the other color and keep swapping them, and I'll show you what that looks like. But basically, you've done your first row of single crochets, your second row to begin the moss stitch, and the second and third row is going to be your new color, and you're just going to alternate doing 2 rows in the color. I'll show you what all of this looks like when it's done. But basically, here we're going to just chain 1, turn our work, we're going to skip the first stitch, work into the next one, and we're going to go across. So let me just go across the entire row and come back and show you how you can move through these rows and make your life a whole lot easier. So here we're at the last part of the moss stitch to be made. I worked a row going this way, and I worked a row going this way, so that's my 2 rows in this light colored green. So let me chain 1 and work this last one, and right here is where this switch comes. So all I have to do is drop this color, pick up the previous color, and join it right into here, tighten the other color, the lighter color, and this is what I have. So let me just redo that so you can see. So I have my chain one here. Let's go close. So I have my chain one here. I'm going to work into this one right here. This is finishing it, but we're changing colors. So all I have to do is drop this yarn, pick up the new colored yarn that I'm going to be working in, and join it right in there. And then I have to tighten the lighter color so it doesn't look all crazy. And right there, we can switch colors without going through too much stress. And then at the end, I can just cut the yarn at the top. So it makes life so much easier. And then I'm going to go through the same pattern here where I work 2 rows of the moss stitch in this color, and then I'm going to switch colors, and 2 rows of the moss stitch in this color, and you're going to keep going through that. So with the magic of editing, I shall show you the finished pieces. Oh, and just as a warning, these colors could get a little tangled, so be sure to move them to appropriate locations as you're working, because they can get all twisted up by all the color changing. And so, we have some finished pieces here. And just as a correction, I think before I said that the total number of rows you'd have is 25. That's not necessarily true. If you're going to do that, just make sure all of them are 25. I don't have it that way. I actually have some of them where total rows is 24 and some of them where total rows is 25. So what I'm actually going to do is remove the 25th row from all of the ones that are like that and leave it mine as a total of every single row in these small squares as 24. So just to clear that up, if you want to do 25, make sure all 4 of your small squares are 25. But I'm going to do mine all as 24. So this is what it looks like. Basically, again, first row is going to be single crochets, and then all the other rows is going to be the moss stitch style. And you do 2 of them, so these are 6-inch squares now. Let me measure for you. It's not actually 6 inches. This one here is like 5.5 by 5.5, okay? Let's try one of these lighter ones. This one here, basically 5.5 by 5.5. And the reason that is that the yarn kind of like settles. So it's stretched as you're working with it, and then once you leave it to sit for a while, it'll kind of contract a little bit, which is what's always going to happen. This is why when you're making projects that are size specific, you need to make a swatch and treat that swatch like it were the final project, and then measure your gauge. Because if you measure your gauge when it was in its stretched form and then it shrinks, you're going to end up with the wrong size. Whereas if I make a gauge off of this now, let's pretend this is my swatch, and I make my gauge, this is an accurate gauge because the swatch has been made and settled like the actual project would. And so when I measure, oh, this is how many stitches per inch that I need, and this is the size hook that I need to use to get that gauge, then when I make the actual project, even though it might be a little bigger in the beginning, it'll shrink down into form. Or other things like blocking your work, blocking your swatch before measuring the gauge, those sorts of things. So that's the same principle behind what's happened here. Because this is just a tiny decorative pillow, it's not to be concerned about. But do keep this in mind because it's important to remember in other aspects of crochet. Your project will settle and shrink down. And that's actually what happened. If you haven't seen last week's video, that's what happened with this. This is the little crochet hook / tool case that I made, or as they call them, crochet organizers. And what happened with my project was the yarn settled, it shrank. And so the sizes that I'd intended to come out with didn't quite happen, which it wasn't horrible, but it could have been better. So for my application, it's fine, but this is something to keep in mind for more important applications. Anywho's, so these are, let me just put that there. These are what you need. So these, when stretched just a little, will end up being 6 inches by 6 inches. And when they're joined together, it'll add a little bit of distance. So you'll have those. And then this is the larger one. And you see how it ends up with this very cool zigzaggy stripe pattern because of the moss stitch. And again, bottom 2 rows is going to be single crochets, and then the beginning of the moss stitch. And then you're going to do two rows, alternating colors of moss stitch. And here on this edge, you can see the color shifting I did, like I was showing you how to do. These little strands here are where I just switched the color as I went along, and then at the top, I tied them both off. So, tied the bottom ends, they're kind of tied on their own, and then we have the tied top ends. So this is how we make this, and this should be roughly 12 by 12, give or take. In this case, take. So this is like 11 and a half. So we're always a ½ inch off. Well, this one's 10 and a half, but that's because the middle, it kind of like curved like that. So if we just straighten that more, now it's bowed, but it's going to be more along the lines of 11 and a half. So this is what we need to have. And now we need to join these all together. Now, one important thing to keep in mind is these loose strands here. You can choose to weave these in, but because of how we're making this, you can just cut them short and put them on the inside of your joins. Nothing to be concerned about. But the way we'll join these is first you want to look for where the direction that the stitches are facing. So if you look carefully, you can see that the moss stitch is facing this way. This is how we built it up. This is the bottom, this is the top of how we worked the actual pattern. And so you want to keep it in this orientation. I mean, rotating isn't bad, but it just helps to keep the design. Or you can make designs for like ones like this and ones like that. I don't know, but I'm just going to choose to keep it like this because I feel it has an impact. So I'll find this one, and this is the bottom. And then we're going to do it alternating. So it's going to be like this, and going to be there, like this. So this is how these are going to be worked. And actually, let us flip this so that the bottoms are all joined together. So this is how these are going to be joined together. And if you haven't seen my joining tutorial, I encourage you to check that out. But the way I'm going to join these is with the whip stitch worked in the middle 2 loops here. So if I just get my yarn needle, which is here, I'll show you that you'll put these 2 together, you'll find the loops that meet together, which would be these 2 right here, and those are the ones that we're going to work the whip stitch into. And then it'll fold out like this, and it will be joined. So that's how we're going to do that, and the color that we're going to do that in is going to be, let me actually get that. So I'm actually going to use this light gray here, which I've used before. And I mean, you can use a different color if you want, or maybe a light brown or something. I'm going to use this gray just because I like it, I guess. And I've actually used this gray with these greens before. It's not too bad, so hopefully it'll look nice. But yeah, let me get my scissors and just quickly trim off some of these. And also I need to find the ones that have 25 rows and shrink them. And then yeah, I'll get on to showing you how this is going to be joined. Okay, so I snipped these a little shorter, took out the row that I needed, and so now we can begin working this join. So I'm just going to take out some yarn, which this is quite a lot for joining, but just chop that and put this in to my yarn needle, which I think I missed here. And so here we have our yarn needle ready to go. So let's align these the way they're supposed to be. One like this, one like that, one like this, one like that. So we're going to join these two first, right here. So firstly, you're going to want to look at these and decide if you want to leave these facing front or if you want to rotate them. And the reason I mentioned this is because if you look here, these stitches are a little different from each other. The tips of the V's are pointing this way, and this one, the tips of the V's are pointing that way. So if you don't want to figure out where they are in alignment so that you thread through the right ones, you can just flip this, which will change the look unnoticeably, but the V's will now be pointing in the same direction and alignment will be easier. I'll do it this way just to make it easy, but if anyone wants to keep a certain look, if they see a difference, they can figure out the right things. But I'm just going to flip this, and we're going to match up all the stitches, and once we're sure that all the stitches line up, you just got to carefully look and make sure that all the stitches line up, which they do. We're going to begin in this corner, and we're going to go under the back loop of the front one and the front loop of the back one. So these two middle closest loops is where we're going to go. And I'm going to make some sort of a, just pull all my yarn through, some sort of a tie here, because these are going to stay together right here. And so I'll make a loop, and the whip stitch is very simple. You just loop and go into the next set. Remember the two closest loops that are in the middle, and you loop through that. Let me get this right there, and you go to the next stitch and you just keep looping through. So you're going to do this with this pair, and then you're going to do the same thing with these two, and then we're going to join those two joined pairs together down the middle. So let me go ahead and finish this. So I've joined these two sides together. You see it makes a very, very nice looking join. It's not too visible, but even if it is, you know, it's not too bad. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. And now we can go down the middle and join the same way. It's going to be a little harder because you don't have loops to join with, but you just kind of line it up and look for where the places look the same and just join them in there the best you can. As long as it looks nice, then that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and finish joining these together so we can see how to do the rest of this. So I finished joining the two side pieces down the middle, and so now we have a larger square. This is what it looks like, and see, it's almost the same size, a little bigger than the bottom one. And what's great about this is if I dig through here and get my ruler, we'll see that the length is just about where it needs to be. And then again, just minor stretch will add the extra that we need. Now, if you look in the center here, it kind of doesn't look too nice. I'm sure you would agree with me. And so there's a simple solution to that. Remember these? These are the 4-leaf clovers that we made earlier this month and in a previous video. And so we can use one of these to make a nice little centerpiece right in the middle of our pillow. You can choose whichever of the ones you made. I made 3. I think I'm gonna go with this one. Perhaps. And yeah, I'll join this into the center and we'll see how we can do that. Just get my yarn attached. Let's pull out some yarn, clip this. Sure, I won't need all of this, but if we pull this through and tie a knot, we can see how we'll go about joining this. So what I'll first do is kind of go through the corner pieces with my yarn and not quite pull them together, but just make it green down this piece. I'll do it a couple times. Add the greenery to it. Oops, I stuck my needle where it didn't belong. There we go. So let's pull that, and let's tie this. Wait, let's stretch that, make sure it's not how it's not supposed to be. Tie a knot. And so now we can see how we're going to go about joining this. Basically, we're just going to join it around this center, so the rest of it will kind of be able to flop. And so from where we are, we're going to go up into here, right into one of these holes here, and we're going to go back into the center. Let's see if I can do this. Up here. So see how there are these 4 holes in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. My finger kind of covered them. But basically, we're going to work this corner into this top corner hole. We're going to work this corner into this corner hole, and so on. So I pulled this up. I'm going to go through the middle into that corner and up one of these. Let me move this yarn out of the way so that you can see. There we go. Into the corner and out this side right here. So I'm kind of just going through the corner pieces. And I'm just gonna do that all the way around to join the center of this. So let's see here, next one. And yeah, I'll just keep doing this. Find the next one, which would be, wait, let's pull this, okay. next one would be here. So let's zoom in close so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'll try to move slowly, but basically we're finding the next hole that we need to work into, which is this one. We're going to work through it. We're going to go back through, let's see here. Yeah, we're going to work through it, find it. We're going to go back through that corner and up through the back of here and pull it. And now let me just make sure that I don't need to move on to working into the next corner, which, yeah, let's do that. So actually, let's just find the next one, work into, okay, we're going to work into the last corner we did and then come out of this side instead. And oops, caught the edge here. There we go. Just like that. And now we can again find the next one, but this time we're going to be working into a new corner. So let's find it. Work into here, down to the center, into this corner, and out this back piece. And find the next one through the center, the corner, and out here. And so yeah, you're just going to estimate where you need to make your shifts, and we're going to do that all the way around. So I'll meet you at the end of this. So I finished, and I just decided that in the middle I would go ahead and loop around the gray with this green here, just so that I could attempt to hide it a little better, the little centerpiece, so it's more green here. And so I think I've done a pretty good job. Then again, we could do some work, but just so that the center here is not annoying with having too much gray showing. Let's tie that. This is the end of the yarn. So let's move that out of the way, which may take me some time. There we go. And so now what I can do is just cut this yarn and use my hook to come up through here and pull this down, and voila, with some yarn moving and some fine work here, we have a green, nice looking center, which is our 4-leaf clover that we made earlier in this video series. So that is nice. We have a center for our pillow. Now I'm pretty certain someone might think that's a flower, but hey, flower or 4-leaf clover makes a nice center. So the last piece we need to do, which is going to take a lot more of our gray yarn, whoops, is we are going to make the border going around the edge of this that's joined, and we're going to do a special kind of border, which isn't really all that special. It's just a modified whip stitch let me get out some yarn here. If you want to know the approximate amount of yarn you'll need for this, loosely wrap your yarn around the perimeter of the thing that you're going to be stitching, and then just give yourself a little extra. So in this case, if I just set this down here like this, that'll give me a rough idea of what I need. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do this much more, so like a little corner piece, and then what I actually, and a little extra for yarn space, and then what I actually need to do is double this, because I'm going to be working with 2 strands of yarn. So we're just going to take that in the corner and pull it until the ends meet, and hopefully I did this right. That's just a rough way to be able to calculate, so hopefully I've got my math right. And now after I find my yarn needle, we'll just insert it down this middle here and loop through with it, doing a regular whip stitch. And yeah, I've actually misplaced my yarn needle, so just give me a moment there. There, like 2 seconds after I find it. Okay, so we're going to just put the yarn through the needle's eye here, and then we're going to keep these ends together, so that when we pull this down all the way on, it can be a little loop on the needle, because we'll just work with these 2 strands together. So you want to try to keep these ends even as much as possible. There we go. This is about right. And then we're going to do what I'm calling a modified whip stitch, simply because we're using 2 strands. It's still just a whip stitch. But you're going to find the ends, and this one we're going to work all the way around the 2 squares to join them. We're not only going to join like one piece or something. It's going around the whole side. It's going to make the seam for it. So again, if you don't want these strands, I'm just going to cut them shorter and leave them, but you can actually weave them in. What I'm hoping for is that they just won't show up in the project with the way I'm doing it, but weaving them in is quite fine. I'm just gonna tuck mine towards the inside so that when I join them together, you know, they're kind of trapped on the inside. So yeah, I'll now start this whip stitch here, which I would need to hold it. Let me start on this side just to make my life easy. Just insert it into the corner and make the knot on the end. And the way I'm going to be doing it, I'm going through what would be considered both loops. On the sides, they aren't quite loops like that, so we're going to do it like we joined this middle piece here. But for the bottom, we're going to just go through both loops. So yeah, I'll go ahead and go all the way around this, and then I shall return just before we finish the top piece of this. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so I finished making the little join around the side here, as you can see. And it's not perfect in terms of aesthetics. There are far better borders that can be done, but we'll cover those probably in later videos. But we finished on this side and left the top open. As you can see, our little measuring technique that I showed earlier, for me at least, got me right to where I needed to be with little to spare. So I'll need to get another piece when we go to join the top. But this isn't quite yet a pillow. It's just two cloths, two crocheted pieces joined together. And what makes this a pillow is this stuff right here. This is some cheap polyfill, just some plastic fibers stuffing that I got at a local store around here. You can find these at any craft store, even like Walmart's or something. You can find these cheap bags of polyfill. And basically all it is, let me just open this up for you. All this is like this plastic fibrous cloudy stuff. And I mean, it's cheap, so it's not all the best quality, but it does the job. And so this is what we'll be using to fill our pillow and actually make it a pillow. Now, I'm only doing it this way because this is a very small pillow. But what you could do if you were making a larger pillow with one of the more standard sizes, like say a 16, I think is one of the standard small sizes, or an 18-inch pillow, is you can just buy just plain old pillows, just little 18-inch pillow that's just all white cloth and filled with basically this stuff. And you could crochet whatever your pillow is to that size and then just stick it in and do the top. So this is just a way of doing this because I couldn't find any 12-inch pillows. I guess it's an uncommon size. But if you're making a larger pillow, this would be a whole lot easier. But this stuff isn't too expensive. I think I got this for like $4 or something, $4 or $5 I think it was. I could be wrong. But yeah, so we're just going to fill this, and then we are going to sew the top together or join the top together like we did the sides. Now, you can fill this basically however firm you want this, or however bloated you want it to be. I'll see when I make mine as I fill it up, and then I'll get some more yarn, join the top, and I can show you basically the finished pillow. So let me do that. And here you have it. This is your finished pillow. I just sealed off the top, fastened off, and hid that little extra yarn I had inside the pillow. So you don't technically have to weave in, because you can just hide everything on the inside like I did and you don't see any of the ends. Or you could weave them in, it don't really matter. Just two notes on this side of your project, the side where you were changing the colors for the back panel, and so you had all those loose strands. Just a word of advice when you're joining them with the yarn needle, don't go through those loose strands, go between the stitches at the bottom. I really should have stopped and showed you guys that, just so that you would be aware. Hopefully I can communicate it through words, but those loose ends that were left from the green traveling up to this, traveling up 2 rows to do this one, and the light green traveling up 2 rows to do the next one, where those loose strands were, instead of joining into those loose loops, you would join into the stitches below like you normally have on this side, which was just a straight edge. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, don't overstuff the pillow. It'll make it hard in a lot of other areas, especially joining the top when you're done. And actually a third thing, just to help with joining the top, if you have trouble like lining up the edge and keeping things together, just mash all the stuffing down so that you have the top free. You can do your join, and then when you're done, just kind of like massage the pillow so that all the fluff moves out. Also, man, there's 4 things. When stuffing the pillow, something that helps if you're using this kind of material, just to get everything to spread a lot better, instead of leaving it in these clumps, kind of just tear it apart so it's a lot looser. Technically, when you stuff it in there, it clumps back together, but it makes moving it around a lot easier once it's inside, if you've kind of broken it up. So here we go. This is a very simple 12-inch pillow that we've made. Anyone can make it. It's very nice, made with the moss stitch. And then we added our little 4-leaf clover applique in the center to hide that annoying hole and to just add something nice to the pillow. So This is a nice project you can do to make a simple decorative pillow. It really doesn't have another purpose. I mean, you could sleep with it, but you could make a bigger pillow for that. So, for now, that will be all for this video. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this tutorial and want to learn more about crochet, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and also share this video with your friends and family or on social media. And feel free to leave a comment down below. If you have any questions or suggestions or any feedback, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, catch you later.